Hello, everyone. Um, so here's what I need you to understand right now. Something is ending. And I don't mean that in a scary way. I mean it in the way that seasons end, the way chapters close, the way you outgrow clothes that used to fit perfectly and you don't even realize it until you try to put them on and they feel wrong. That's where you are. Welcome back. It's Anna. And I'm going to be really honest with you about what I felt when I sat down to record this. I cried, not because something bad is happening, but because something profound is. And sometimes the weight of transformation, even good transformation, just hits you in the chest and demands to be felt. You may not see it yet. You might be going through your days thinking everything's normal. Same routines, same problems, same people, same you. But it's not. Something fundamental has shifted in you, or it's about to. And once it does, your entire life changes after this. Let me try to explain what I mean. There are these moments in life, these invisible thresholds you cross, where you're never the same person again. Sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's a loss, sometimes it's just waking up one day and realizing you can't pretend anymore, can't perform, can't keep carrying what you've been carrying. Some people spend years building a version of their life that looks good from the outside. The right job, the right relationship, the right friend group, the right image. And then one day they wake up and realize none of it actually fits who they are. It might feel like you've been living someone else's life, following someone else's script, meeting expectations that were never really yours to begin with. And you're tired. So tired of pretending that script feels right when it doesn't. Let's pause here because I need you to be really honest with yourself. This reflection invites you to consider, have you been performing a version of yourself that isn't actually you? Like maybe at work, you're the person who never complains. At home, you're the person who holds everything together. With friends, you're the funny one or the reliable one or the chill one. You may have built these roles so carefully that you forgot they were roles. You started believing that's just who you are. That's what you're supposed to be. It's possible you've been so busy being what other people need that you haven't stopped to ask what you need, what you actually want, what would make you feel alive instead of just functional. And now something's cracking. The mask is slipping. The performance is exhausting you. Some people experience this as a kind of breakdown, but it's not. It's a breakthrough disguised as falling apart. You may have been crying more lately, feeling more, getting overwhelmed by things that used to roll off your back, and you might think something's wrong with you, but nothing's wrong. You're just waking up. And waking up hurts before it heals. It can feel like everything you thought was solid is suddenly questionable. The relationship you were sure about, the career path you were committed to, the city you live in, the person you thought you'd become, none of it feels certain anymore. This reflection invites you to consider what in your life has started to feel wrong, even though it used to feel right. There's something about timing that I need to talk about. It's possible you've been feeling this shift building for months, maybe longer. Little moments of disconnect, little flashes of this isn't me, little thoughts you pushed away because they were inconvenient or scary. But you can only push things down for so long before they push back up, before your body starts screaming what your mind won't admit, before the life you built stops fitting the person you're becoming. Some people hit these breaking points and try to go back, convince themselves they were just having a bad day or a bad month, recommit to the same patterns, double down on what isn't working. You may be tempted to do that, to talk yourself out of what you're feeling, to minimize it, to wait it out and hope it passes. But what if it's not supposed to pass? What if you're supposed to listen to it? This reflection invites you to consider what would happen if you actually honored what you've been feeling instead of fighting it. Let me talk about what your entire life changes after this actually means. It's possible. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside. You're not necessarily quitting your job tomorrow or ending your relationship or moving across the country, though you might. Some people do. But the change I'm talking about is deeper than external circumstances. It's internal. It's how you see yourself, how you define success, what you're willing to accept, what you're no longer willing to tolerate. You may start saying no to things that used to be automatic yeses. Start questioning commitments that used to feel non-negotiable. Start prioritizing your peace over people's expectations. And that changes everything. Because when you change what you accept, you change what shows up in your life. It can feel terrifying at first, like you're breaking some unspoken contract, letting people down, being selfish, choosing yourself when you were taught that was wrong. Some people carry so much guilt about outgrowing their old life. They apologize for evolving, for wanting more, for admitting that what they thought they wanted isn't what they want anymore. But evolution isn't betrayal. It's survival. This reflection invites you to consider who in your life might struggle with you changing. And are you willing to change anyway? There's something about grief that needs to be addressed here. It's possible part of why this feels so heavy is because you're grieving not just what you're leaving behind, but who you're leaving behind. The version of you that tried so hard to make it all work. Some people don't realize that growth requires mourning. You have to let the old you die to become the new you. And that dying process, even when it's necessary, is sad. You may need to give yourself permission to be sad about it, to honor what you're releasing, even as you know you need to release it, because the life you built mattered. The person you were mattered, even if they're not who you're meant to be anymore. It can feel like standing at a crossroads crying because both paths involve loss. Stay and lose yourself. Leave and lose everything familiar. This reflection invites you to consider, what are you grieving right now that you haven't named yet? Let me slow down for a second because I want to talk about why I cried. I cried because I felt the weight of what you're carrying, the courage it takes to admit your life isn't working, the loneliness of changing when everyone around you wants you to stay the same. I cried because transformation is brutal and beautiful, and so few people have the guts to actually go through with it. Most people sense it coming and numb out, distract themselves, build higher walls, anything to avoid the discomfort of becoming, but you're not. Most people. Or you wouldn't be here right now listening to this. Some people reach these turning points and run. But you're staying. You're sitting in the discomfort. You're asking the hard questions. And that's everything. You may not feel brave. You might feel terrified and confused and like you're making a mistake. But fear and bravery aren't opposites. Bravery is doing it anyway. And you are. This reflection invites you to consider, what would it mean to trust that you're exactly where you need to be right now? There's something specific about what happens after the breaking point. It's possible things get harder before they get easier. You make the decision to change and suddenly everything resists. People push back. Circumstances challenge you. Your own doubt gets louder. Some people interpret that resistance as a sign they made the wrong choice. They think, see, this is why I shouldn't have changed anything. But resistance isn't rejection. It's reorganization. It's your life rearranging itself to match your new frequency. And that process is messy. You may lose things you thought were permanent. People might not understand. Doors might close. And for a while, it might feel like you made everything worse. But you didn't. You just cleared space. And space always feels empty before it fills with something better. It can feel like free falling, like you let go of the trapeze and you're in midair and the next one hasn't appeared yet. And every part of you wants to grab back onto what you released. This reflection invites you to consider, can you trust the in-between? Can you exist in uncertainty without panicking back into what's familiar? Let me talk about what's on the other side of this. It's possible you can't see it yet. The life that's waiting for you, the version of you that's more aligned, more authentic, more at peace. But I need you to know it exists, not because I can predict your future, but because this pattern is real. People who have the courage to dismantle what isn't working, they find what is. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. Some people who leave the wrong relationship find the right one. People who quit the soul-crushing job find work that energizes them. People who release toxic friendships find genuine community. You may not believe that right now. You might think, sure, for other people, but not for me. But why not you? What makes you the exception? This reflection invites you to consider, what story are you telling yourself about why you don't deserve better? There's something about worthiness that's underneath all of this. It's possible the real reason you've stayed in what doesn't fit is because part of you doesn't believe you deserve what does, doesn't believe you're allowed to want more, doesn't believe you're special enough for life to work out. Some people settle not because their options are limited, but because they've internalized the idea that they should be grateful for whatever they get, that wanting more is greedy, that they're asking too much. And that belief, that's the cage, not your circumstances, your belief about what you're allowed to have. You may need to examine that, where it came from, who taught you to make yourself small, to accept less, to apologize for wanting what you want. Because once you understand the origin of that belief, you can dismantle it. You can choose differently. It can feel revolutionary to simply decide you deserve good things, not because you earned them, not because you're perfect, just because you're human and humans deserve to thrive. This reflection invites you to consider, what would change if you truly believed you deserved an extraordinary life? Let me talk about practical next steps, because theory is useless without action. It's possible the first step is just admitting out loud what you already know to yourself, maybe to one trusted person, just naming the truth you've been avoiding. This relationship isn't working. This job is killing me. I'm not happy. I need to change something. Some people spend years knowing the truth but never speaking it. And unspoken truth festers. It becomes resentment, depression, physical illness. But spoken truth becomes possibility. You may need to say the scary thing. Even if your voice shakes, even if you cry, even if saying it makes it real in a way that terrifies you, because real is where change happens. Denial is where dreams go to die. This reflection invites you to consider, what truth have you been avoiding saying out loud? There's something about support that matters here too. It's possible you're going through this alone, feeling like no one would understand, like you'd be judged for wanting different than what you have. But isolation makes everything harder, and you don't have to do this alone. Some people are waiting to support you. They're just waiting for permission, waiting for you to be honest about what you're going through. You may need to reach out, to be vulnerable, to risk being seen in your confusion and fear, because community doesn't show up for your highlight reel. It shows up for your humanity. And right now, you need people who can hold space for your transformation without trying to fix it or rush it or talk you out of it. This reflection invites you to consider, who in your life could you trust with the truth of where you are right now? Let me address the crying directly because I think it matters. I cried recording this not just because of what you're going through, but because of what's possible on the other side. I cried because I've seen people go through this exact thing, felt the same fear, asked the same questions, doubted themselves the same way. And I've seen them come out transformed, not perfect, but more themselves, not problem-free, but more peaceful, not having it all figured out, but finally living honestly. Some people describe life after as feeling like they can finally breathe, like they didn't realize how tight their chest was until the pressure released. You may discover that the life you were so afraid to leave was actually suffocating you. And the freedom on the other side, even with its uncertainty, feels like oxygen. Your entire life changes after this. And yes, that's scary, but it's also the point. It's supposed to change. You're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to outgrow what no longer serves you. Not eventually, right now, today. You remain in complete control of how fast you move. You can take baby steps. You can move slowly. You can change one thing at a time, but you can't go back to sleep. Not fully. Not now that you know the power is yours. It always has been. You may notice reading this has brought up everything. Fear and relief and grief and hope all tangled together. That's normal. That's the process. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, trust yourself. Before we close, I want to ask you something. If you could change one thing about your life right now without anyone judging you, what would it be? You don't have to share it publicly, but name it for yourself. Drop it in the comments only if it feels safe. And what's the smallest step you could take this week toward the life you actually want? Not the life you should want, the life you do want. I cried because your entire life changes after this. And that's terrifying and sacred and necessary. But also, you're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to look back at this moment and recognize it as the beginning of everything that mattered. Trust yourself with this. Trust that the discomfort is temporary, but the growth is permanent. I'll see you in the next one. And listen, changing your entire life doesn't mean burning it all down. Sometimes it just means finally being honest about what you need and building from there. Start where you are with what's true. Everything else will follow.